Welcome back to Uncompromised, the podcast about regenerative agriculture and how we can uncompromise the food that we eat. I'm Kyle and I'm here with my dad Scott and Kevin. We're all regenerative farmers here in Ohio. Today we're going to get into your background story a little bit and talk about, I guess, like how you got started, because none of us are traditional farmers of any kind. So you have a whole career in the military, and then you eventually got into farming. So we'll talk about that and how that all happened. I know that Kevin and I did an episode very similar to that, where we talked about our backgrounds, and that's in a previous episode. Is probably like our second or third one, something like that.
It was really early on.
Yeah. Before we get into all of that, I didn't tell you guys beforehand that I was going to do this, but I have a quick hypothetical scenario for you two.
Oh, here we go.
Lovely.
Oh, yeah. It's a hypothetical.
Well, we moved that one segment to the end, and I wanted to see if this works as a quick icebreaker before we get into the protein of the episode. So this is a hypothetical situation. If you were to start your own farm from scratch anywhere in the country, where would you start it? And I guess for you, Dad, it would kind of be a little different. If you could start a new farm anywhere in the country, where would you want to start it?
I would love to start a farm in Vermont.
Vermont? That was
in Vermont.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason is, and I'd want to do something like a maple syrup farm, but just the countryside, the beauty of that state is so magnificent. We visited it one time, and it was in the middle of summer, so didn't have the fall advantages and so forth, but it was the most beautiful state. Mm-hmm. And so I would really love that. Can I have a second?
Yeah. What's your second?
So my backup would be maybe a ranch in Montana, with the mountains in the background and all that kind of good stuff. So all that picturesque kind of thing, that would be most ideal. And I'd be ranching at that point.
Yeah.
But those would be my two.
Those are two good ones. What about you, Kevin?
Montana.
Yeah, Montana.
Montana. Largely because I know the area very well, lived there for 7 years, fell in love with the area, and I think ranching would be where I would go with it, absolutely. But I would probably do cattle and sheep. The more I read about sheep and the positives behind sheep, the more I think it would be a cattle operation that made its money in sheep.
Huh. That's cool though.
Yeah.
What about you?
Initially, so Vermont was actually the first thing that came to mind, but I've also never been to Vermont, so I only seen it from like pictures and stuff, so I don't actually know what the climate is like. So I kind of changed my answer.
You were with us in Vermont.
When
we went we went across Lake Champlain.
Champlain?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's Champlain. I may be wrong, and if I am, I'll admit it up front, but I thought that's what it was. So we had gone through the state of New York, and then we went into New Hampshire, and then we crossed over Lake Champlain into Vermont, drove down to Massachusetts and visited Pam and Gary in Massachusetts. And you, Megan, Nicole, and Casey
I remember
were all with us.
That was before we moved to Virginia,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Oh, so you were 12,
Yeah.
13.
Yeah. He was younger, much younger.
I do remember
Right.
that parts of the road trip.
Yeah.
Okay. I actually started thinking about either Nebraska or Utah, because I thought of ranching in Nebraska, specifically ranching, and then I just think Utah would probably be a better, more fun, I guess. But it also, I'm assuming that there wouldn't be any, I'm not worried about the marketing side of things, because that's where I think we're in such a good spot in Ohio when it comes to being near major cities. Like we have Dayton, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Toledo, all within.
Indianapolis. Yeah. I
Let's forget about Indianapolis.
We got a lot.
Very well situated.
Yeah, for sure.
I was kind of ignoring all of that stuff, the economics of it, but because if
I
do
I was
incorporate
too.
Montana wouldn't be great for that. I picked it
if
for
I
selfish
incorporate
reasons.
economics, then I would stick with Ohio.
Yeah.
Selfish reasons.
Selfish here too, but I'm thinking all three of us are saying ranching. Why don't we shut this operation down and let's move west?
Right.
Yeah, man. Well, that's interesting though. That was a interesting hypothetical.
All right, so let's get into your background. Where do you want to start with that?
Well, I think probably college is a good place to start because my first degree is in forestry, which says something all automatically. Christmas tree farms, you see that relationship. But my first degree was in forestry, and that was way back in 1977. Trudy and I had gotten married, and literally the next day, we drove to North Carolina, and we were married in Sarasota, Florida. So that's where I'm from. She lived in Bradenton, just 30 minutes north of us. Got married there, moved up to North Carolina in the mountains. So Maggie Valley, Waynesville, Clyde, Canton, that area, it's about 40 miles west of Asheville. And so went to a forestry school there, got a degree in forestry, did some procurement forestry for a couple of years in Maryland and South Carolina, just couldn't make ends meet. This again is in the early 1980s, and enlisted in the Air Force at that point.
Can I ask, what did you learn? What type of stuff did you learn in forestry school?
Oh gosh, a wide variety of things, but primarily we learned how to estimate the amount of timber that's on land. We learned all about the dynamics of a tree itself, all kinds of things about the anatomy of the tree and how it grows and how the environment affects the tree, how the tree affects the environment, those kinds of things. Silviculture, all kinds of different practices on how forestry is done, just a whole host of things along those lines.
Were you thinking of doing that to pursue a career in forestry, I would assume?
Yeah, I did.
And then,
yeah, that's what I wanted to do when we, after we finished that degree, I was hired by a company called Koppers Corporation, which was in pole timber and cross ties. And so among other things, but they hired me in Salisbury, Maryland. I went out there, and that's where they were creosoting cross ties for railroads, that kind of thing. And so I was a procurement forester there, buying the timber that was cut to a cross tie. Then we'd bring it to the industrial area there, and then we'd creosote it. And then got transferred down to Walterboro, South Carolina, and then down there, pole timber, so for telephone poles.
Right.
And they were using soft pine, so loblolly pine, longleaf pine, that kind of thing. So again, a procurement forester there. I had 11 logging crews, and so would work with those logging crews and the landowners to procure the timber, and just the timber. We would send logging crews in there, harvest the timber, take the saw timber over to a sawmill, the pulp timber over to a pulp mill, and then the pole timber would come to us. And so I would do all that, pay the landowner, cruise the timber to determine how much of all that went to each of those different areas, made payouts to the customer, that kind of thing.
So you were doing all that and still not making ends meet?
Oh no, I was making $10,400 a year, and I had a car, not a pickup. I had a car, but $10,400 a year in the early 80s was hard. It was hard for a young couple with a brand new baby. So Nicole was born down in South Carolina, and that's when I enlisted in the Air Force. And as an enlistee, I made more money than I did as a procurement forester.
Did you come in as an E1 too?
I came in as an E3.
E3? Okay.
Yeah, I came in as an E3 because I had school. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What made you choose forestry to begin with?
Passion. Just was my passion. I love that whole idea. And I wanted to do something up in the mountains of North Carolina, which is where the school was. And so I thought that would be an interesting career. Now, keep in mind, 19 years old, I have no idea what the world is like. And so I thought as far as school. and not any job after it or anything along those lines.
Can I survive on this?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of what are the wages that a forester makes, a procurement forester, what are the wages that they make? Can they sustain a family? Didn't even consider any of that. Yeah. So
was that your first time leaving Florida too?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So left at I was 19. Trudy was 19, and we left there and went straight north. So you talk about cutting ties.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of not being dependent on the family or anything like that. I mean, literally, we got married on the 3rd of September. The 4th of September, we were on the road, and that night we were in North Carolina. No job or anything, and hadn't even enrolled yet. So again, you know, you can do amazing things when you're ignorant.
Yeah.
And young. And have a desire.
Right.
You know, so.
Back before cell phones. Back
Oh yeah.
before all of that stuff.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, but it was great. It was great. I mean, we both, the first 2 weeks were pretty hard for us because we didn't have a job and all that kind of good stuff. But you know, that's the kind of stuff that binds you together. Yeah.
Did you, I mean, other than the pay issue, did you enjoy that work?
Oh, absolutely enjoyed it. Absolutely enjoyed it.
So then what made you decide to go enlist into the Air Force?
Job security. Again, remember now this is in the early 80s. And so we had 82 time frame. All kinds of issues going on in the early 80s. So I was looking for job security, a way to take care of the family financially and get a free education. I wanted to get another degree so that I can be more marketable. So by then, thinking a little bit more long term and that kind of thing. And it was just at the time just Trudy and me. So that's what drove us to move into that arena. And I'm an organized person anyway, so I like the idea of the hierarchy and organizational structure and those kinds of things. Those kind of appealed to me. Not that that was the driver, it wasn't. It was really financials and a potential to be able to get free education.
So
yeah, those were the key.
Why Air Force?
Because I did do a little homework in there and I realized that the Air Force was really the way to go. The quality of life, that kind of thing, was so much better in the Air Force. And I had an affinity with airplanes anyway, though I don't like to fly at all. But I do love aircraft. So that was a natural fit. There was no question about that. The other services, as much as I love them, I didn't have any desire to look at those.
That's fair.
So that was a natural fit.
So what was the process like to enlist in the Air Force at the time?
Yeah, so at the time, I had to take an ASVAB test, scored really well on it. In fact, you know, I received some of the highest scores that you can get on the ASVAB, and so that opened everything up to me. So anything I wanted.
Take your pick.
And so they actually
like open it up in terms of
in terms of job opportunities.
job opportunities.
Yeah, so depending on your score on your ASVAB, if you score really low, then you go into certain jobs. If you score really high, you can go into other jobs. And so I had my choice of anything. And then they came to me and said, hey, we really need folks in the ICBM, the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Minuteman III field. And there, as an enlisted troop, you had a tremendous amount of autonomy. That appealed to me, but they came to me on that one and said, hey, we've got this opening. Are you interested in it? Of course, what I should have been thinking was, what are the marketable skills that a ICBM, you know, technician is going to do? Of course, that didn't enter my mind. So I bid on that and loved it. That was such a great career. Loved it, but I only did that for 4 years and then went to school. So we got stationed in Wyoming, Cheyenne, Wyoming at F.E. Warren Air Force Base. And there, Nicole was then 3 months old when we got there. And so over the course of that next 4 years, I got an industrial technology degree. And because of forestry degree, I couldn't become an officer. And I thought, well, if I'm going to make a career out of this thing, I at least want to be an officer so that I can get more money. And perhaps learn some leadership skills and those kinds of things. But frankly, it was all about the money at the time.
Yeah.
Just, you know, to try to start building our nest egg.
So you were working in the Air Force and they allow you to go to school at the same time?
Yeah. Went to school full time, worked full time, and of course tried to do as much as we could as a family. So that's why we never went to Yellowstone, as an example, because we just couldn't afford it. And I didn't have the time, because the way the school operated, it was on weekends. And so I was on call during the week, and then it was every other weekend and you went both Saturday and Sunday, and so it was really intense. The schooling was really intense.
Wait, did you go to school there in Cheyenne?
Yeah. The instructors flew out to Cheyenne, and yeah, that's how it worked. It was with Southern Illinois University.
How big was
in
your
Carbondale.
class?
Oh, it was a small class. I mean, we maybe had 16, 17 people, something like that in it. It was small. I know. Is it affordable to do that kind of thing? But
the school
at the time, that's where
it was.
it was.
Part of the Air Force.
No, it was a private school.
Oh, okay.
And so they had an education department, and the education department would contract with these schools. And that was not the only school that did that.
Oh,
right.
There were 3 other schools. University of Phoenix was one, and our University of Maryland might have been the other one. But yeah, they would come out there, and there's a good number of people who are trying to get an education in the military, and so they would go to these bases, and that's what they would do. And so that's what I did. I got my bachelor's degree in industrial technology there.
Was your forestry degree a bachelor's?
Yeah.
So you got another bachelor's?
Right. The forestry degree, they didn't want anything to do with that in terms of becoming an officer. If you had an engineering or a technology degree, they would accept you. And so that's why I went after that, got that degree, and then that allowed me then to compete for a slot in officer training school. And I graduated in 1984, and in December of 1984 got picked up to go to OTS. And I went to officer training school in December 3rd or 4th, something like that, of 1984. Went there for 2 weeks, and then got sent home for Christmas. So it was golden.
What type of?
I know. They actually sent us back for Christmas. They did.
I'm so mad.
Yeah.
I did not get that kind of treatment.
Yeah, it was a different Air Force then. Yeah.
What type of things did you learn getting your technology degree? Because it's such a broad.
Yeah, that is a broad.
It's like a general.
It is.
What is that?
It's a general degree. So the 2 things that really stick out for me was this whole idea of systems engineering sorts, where you would do a plant layout and you would follow the path of how a product would get through the process, and you would chart that out to learn efficiencies and how you can make improvements. That was one thing, but there was one course in particular that I didn't love it at the time, but I found it hugely valuable, and that was logic, the study of logic. Of all things. And what that forced me to do was to learn how to think critically.
Yeah.
And so doing that, learning how to look at things in a formal way, in a logical way, was very, very useful to me. And so that was one of the most valuable courses that I had. But there was marketing in there, and there was a number of engineering related courses, though the math wasn't intense like it is with engineering courses, because it was a technology degree. But yeah, very, very useful from an industrial plant perspective, learning about those kinds of things. So that, again, was just another thing to help hone the disciplines around planning, process improvement, and thinking critically about problems and solving problems in a systematic way. See, so it was very helpful in the jobs that I would end up doing, though I never really used the degree itself for anything. What we learned, the broader things that we learned, is very much applicable.
Yeah.
Even right here on this farm. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Tested that.
So then you went to officer training school. Talk about that.
Yeah. So I went to officer training school in Lackland, Texas. So that was before it got moved to Maxwell Air Force Base, and I'm not sure if that was in the 90s when that was. But anyway, I went down there, went to OTS, and it was, I don't even remember how many weeks it was, 12 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. And that's where you just learn how to become an officer. You get a lot of indoctrination into the Air Force and learn a little bit about Air Force mission and the different strategies and those kinds of things that are applied. You learn how, the differences. You've got your civil servants, you've got your enlisted corps, you got your officer corps, how they relate with one another, and all that kind of, lots of leadership. So that was my first real exposure to some leadership things. As an airman, I did have an opportunity to go to just a very short course. It was not yet the Airman Leadership School.
Wasn't ALS yet?
Yeah, that didn't exist quite yet there, but they had some kind of rudimentary things that they would send you to help develop those basic skills that you needed as an NCO.
Right.
Like how to write an EPR, an enlisted performance report, and how to write bullets and how to communicate, those kinds of things. So at the time they had something called the tongue and quill.
Oh,
and
they
the
still
tongue,
talk about that.
Oh yeah, it still exists electronically.
Yeah.
I have a hard copy of it, but anyway, that kind of thing they were introducing young airmen to. So as we were becoming senior airmen and young NCOs, we had the necessary information to be able to have people to supervise. And so that's where I started learning about leadership. But then in OTS, Officer Training School, they added a lot more to that. And then of course, through the officer corps, you had a squadron officer school, and you had your intermediate level schooling, which was very leadership intensive and understanding the broader Air Force dynamics, and then senior service school, which I was very fortunate to be a National Defense Fellow. And then that's a kind of a graduate level course that was a year long. Both of those, the intermediate level and the senior service schools, were both 1 year schools. But in the Air Force, learned a whole lot about leadership, but also my particular discipline was logistics. And at the beginning, it was aircraft maintenance, and then it moved into other logistical kinds of things, and then into the command line. But through all of that, learning discipline, learning about people. So as an aircraft maintenance officer, they have the opportunity to lead a large number of enlisted troops. So real crucible of leadership development that either you do well with or you don't. And so great opportunities to hone your skills and to develop the necessary kind of ability to relate with people at different levels of their development, educational development. Their backgrounds are different, that kind of thing. It was a real opportunity to learn that. At the same time, it was an opportunity to learn politically how to deal with your peers and with your supervisors, and to navigate, politics too strong a word, but to navigate the culture that an officer had to deal with as they grew up in the ranks. And the more senior you got, the more that became even more important.
Right.
And knowing how to brief senior officers, knowing how to communicate with senior officers, knowing how to communicate with your chiefs, as an example, is another thing. So these hierarchies of people, a chief is a E9 or your most senior of your NCOs. And so they carry a lot of weight. And so we would match them up, a company grade officer, which is a second lieutenant through captain. Those are company grade officers. We'd marry them up with either a senior non-commissioned officer, or a senior master sergeant, or a chief master sergeant.
Right.
And marry them up. And I had some great guys who were super mentors, because they understood you help the young officer develop their skills, then they will be better senior officers for the enlisted troops.
Right.
And so it worked so well together.
Yeah, because your senior master sergeant is 17-ish years into the military, where your captain may be 5 years into it,
Right.
real young, fresh out of college.
Yeah.
Not fresh, but a few years out of college.
Right.
So there's a lot of mentorship that is still needed there.
Yeah. And that's how you made that work.
Right. It makes perfect sense.
So it was a very symbiotic relationship, and I mean, I didn't really give them much, but they gave me a lot. But it was great from that perspective.
What is required, at least at the time, to become to go from an enlisted to an officer?
Yeah, so if there were openings, so of course the personnel system would dictate how many openings were available, and there were several ways of becoming an officer. One was OTS, one was a direct commission if you were a professional like a dentist, a doctor, or a lawyer. You have a direct commission route. You could be coming out of the academy, or you could be ROTC. So ROTC, academy, OTS were the three primary ways of getting to become an officer. So as an enlisted troop, I knew that was kind of my goal, and so my only route was to go OTS. And so I submitted a package, and it went through a review board. And the first review board, I didn't get accepted. The second review board, I did get accepted. Yeah. So they were 6 weeks apart.
Okay.
So that worked out really well. Hence the reason why it was so late into the December. I mean the 1984 timeframe. That's how I got in.
What was it called? OTC?
OTS.
Yes.
OTS.
Officer Training School.
How long is officer training school?
It's about I want to say 8 weeks. 12 weeks of sticking in there, but I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Is that it? You just have to do OTS? Or?
Yeah, right.
And then
once that is done, we get a commission.
So to put that into perspective, at the time, basic training for enlisted personnel was 6 weeks, right?
Right. That was 6 weeks.
Right.
So we were a little thicker, so we needed a little bit more training before we can get completely through it.
That's right.
Yeah. So
I'm sure the focuses were the same too.
Yeah.
So did you continue to go to school more after OTS?
I did. Oh yeah.
Was that required, or was that?
Yes. So no. Master's degree is desired, not required. And I wanted to get a master's degree, and I ended up with 3 of them. So my first one was in logistics management. So after I had been commissioned, and I spent 4 years at Carswell Air Force Base on B-52s and KC-135 aircraft. Then I got picked up to go to the Air Force Institute of Technology right here in Dayton, Ohio, at Wright Pat Air Force Base. Yep. So we moved up here. We had Megan at the time. She was 3. We moved in 1989. And so we came up here, and I went to graduate school and got a formal master's degree in logistics management. From there, that's where you were born. So from there, we moved down to Alabama, because once you receive that degree, I have to fill what's called an advanced academic degree billet. So there are positions out there that the Air Force identifies that says, in order to fill this position, you must have an advanced academic degree. So I had to do that in my first or second assignment out of AFIT, out of the Air Force Institute of Technology. So I did it immediately. So I went down to the Air Force Logistics Management Agency in Montgomery, Alabama, at Gunter Annex to Maxwell Air Force Base. And that's where you were born, down there in Montgomery. And so there, I was using my degree to advance the whole idea of logistics management within the Air Force. So that was my first taste of the broader Air Force environment. And so that was very interesting. Loved it a lot. But that's where I really honed the whole idea of research and how to do research correctly in an applied way. So the difference between just regular research and applied research was that you're doing research on a topic that then can be applied directly to Air Force installations.
Right.
And so I was given a number of really cool projects that I had the opportunity to lead. And I had a number of different staff. They didn't work for me. They worked for other departments within the Air Force Logistics Management Agency. But your PhD types and your research analytic types and those kinds of folks who were very specialized, I would use them on my team to solve a problem for the Air Force. So we always had to be sponsored by some Air Force organization. That sponsorship meant that they are more likely to execute what it was that you were researching. And they would provide funding for it as well. See, so it was a symbiotic relationship, very much so. And so did that for 4 years and absolutely loved it. But there I got an opportunity to actually use the very degree that I had gotten my master's in. Then at Intermediate Service School, I got another master's out of that. And then for the National Defense Fellow, got another master's through that one as well.
What's Intermediate Service School?
So that's when you're, usually when you're a major. So your squadron officer school is for captains. Your intermediate service school is for usually majors. And so for the squadron officer school, you go there, and that was another 8-week thing. For intermediate service school, it's a whole year. So the Air Force pays you as a major to go to school full time to learn deeply learning Air Force. So you're understanding the mission, you're understanding the history, you're understanding all the different approaches that are used in warfighting. You understand the relationship between intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and so many other disciplines that are out there. And so that gives you the big picture. Because an officer is intended to be able to look across the scope, have a broad scope, but not a lot of depth. Our enlisted corps has a tremendous amount of depth, but not necessarily the breadth. You put those together and you got a real fighting opportunity there. And so that's exactly what we did. So got a chance to really learn a lot about the Air Force there, and to take and apply that. So when we're faced with situations on the ground, and my next assignment was to Tyndall Air Force Base after my intermediate service school. Tyndall Air Force Base, a fighter unit there, where they had combined the maintenance and the operators into one squadron. What a great opportunity to apply some of what I just learned, to understand the bigger picture. And then I could translate that into language that my enlisted troops better understood. Because when we were getting ready to go fly a mission to some ungodly location for who knows how long, helping them understand the why made a big difference.
I talk to Reagan about that all the time.
Yeah, so that was part of what I felt my job was as an officer, was to be able to help them better understand the whys that often didn't come to them unless you took the time to explain it to them.
Right.
But you have to be able to explain it in a way that they're going to understand. Not that they're not, they're not dumb, but they're not exposed to the kinds of things that we had the opportunity to get exposure to in this year-long course.
Right.
Same thing for senior service school. This was senior service school. Also, you go for a year, and the Air Force has one at Maxwell Air Force Base. But I got picked up. I was very blessed to get picked up to go to a National Defense Fellowship. And so what that means is there's a small number that that compete, and they are separated, and they get to go to places like Harvard or MIT or some of the top name universities. Or in my particular case, I went to the Institute for Defense Analyses in Washington, D.C. It's an FFRDC, a federally funded research and development center.
Yeah.
So they do work directly for the Secretary of Defense. And so I got in there, and man, it was such an eye-opening experience. I had to write a formal thesis, and I had an Army Brigadier General, retired, that supported me in that effort. And he was my advisor through that whole thing. And but it was, again, exposure to worlds like the Secretary of Defense and his world. Never been exposed to any of that. Joint Chiefs of Staff, their world, never been exposed to any of that.
It's a whole nother world right there.
Yeah. So, well, you talk about a deep education, but it was looking at it from a completely different angle. And so that was very, very beneficial to me. From there...
What timeline are we at? Like
early
2000s?
No, so that would be...
late 90s.
No, 2000. So I was a squadron commander 2000 to 2001. Yeah, 2001. So 2001.
So when you came out to Beale.
Yeah. And then right after Beale, My next assignment was to
Right.
that National Defense Fellowship. So did that for a year and got picked up as, now this is very fortunate here because usually operators get picked up for this. I got picked up for an operations billet on the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So on the joint staff. Plum job, absolutely plum job. And how I got picked up for that, I don't know.
Can you say that one more time?
What? Yeah. Yeah, sorry. So so the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is the most senior ranking military member of all services. And then underneath him, the vice chief is the second highest ranking person in the military. So
the guys that are briefing the president and stuff.
Yeah, so the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has a staff of about 1,600. That is, and it's considered the premier staff of all staffs, or at least at the time. It may be different now, but it was the premier staff of all staffs of the military. And to be chosen for that staff was a plum. It was a really good thing, really good for your career, all that kind of good stuff. So got picked up for that on the J7 staff. And the J7 was operational plans. So that's what I got to do. And so learning how to do all of that stuff. Very, very different. My boss was a Navy captain, which is an 06. So a Navy captain. So riding on me as a lieutenant colonel. I'm a lieutenant colonel at the time.
What is your rank here?
Yeah, I'm a lieutenant colonel at the time. So did that for 3 years. There for 9/11 and that whole thing. So it was during that time period in 2001.
You were because you worked at the Pentagon at that time, right?
Yeah, I worked in two places. So I had an office at the Pentagon, in the basement of the Pentagon. And then I had an office over in Alexandria, Virginia, because I was the lead for developing joint training. And so I had a whole staff over there. And so that was my afternoon job. I would go in the afternoon there and do my whole joint knowledge and development training piece. In the daytime, I'm over at the Pentagon doing operational planning. And so those two things, because the chairman wanted some joint training because we were lacking pretty significantly in how to fight a fight together.
Right.
With your Army, your soldiers and your Marines and your sailors and your airmen. At the time, didn't have Space Force at the time, but making them better equipped to support the combatant commander, which is the ultimate commander in a warfighting situation. So got to do that for 4 years.
That's interesting.
Actually, it was 3 years. And that's where I got picked up for colonel and below the zone, both the lieutenant colonel and to colonel below the zone, which is early. It's an early promotion. And you were there when I got pinned on. I remember you standing there, but that's what was going on. And then from there went over to took command of Al-Udeid as the mission support group commander at Al-Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar for a year. That was a remote tour, so it was my first remote tour. So I was gone for a year, and
you got to cap that in a pretty big way. The first one to jump in the pool there, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What was your job in there?
Only people.
So kind of equivalent to the base commander, and we have a wing commander that covers the mission, and then my job was to oversee security forces, communications, the whole communications squadron, civil engineering, our services squadron, our contracts, all of our contracts, work, and personnel. And so I had all of those folks.
So much.
And as an aircraft maintenance officer, so one of the things that the chairman, I'm sorry, not the chairman, but the chief of staff of the Air Force decided to do was they took 30 maintenance officers and put them into mission support groups to cross-pollinate and to bring the rigor of aircraft maintenance discipline into the mission support world. Not that they didn't have it, but at the time,
It was lacking.
there were some things out there that were lacking that they wanted to infuse more discipline into the mission support group side of the house. So I got selected for that and got sent out to Al Udeid.
So was that lacking because this is like a new kind of quote unquote war and
No.
they didn't have experience?
Cultural differences almost within it.
Very much cultural.
Every career field kind of has its own subculture.
Right.
And like you have your dress appearance, all your standards and everything that you follow. They all follow it, but the atmosphere on the job site, at work, and everything else is different depending on where you go. And even so, Flightline, we'll just say if they're going to check out a toolbox to go work on an aircraft, if one piece of any of those tools are missing, everybody's staying and they're going to find that tool.
Right.
You go to CE, a tool's missing, it's fine.
Yeah. So the whole idea was to instill a greater sense of discipline in squadrons that up to that point didn't need as much of that kind of discipline. Now, I may be understating that, and I don't mean to degrade any of our squadrons that I had just mentioned a few minutes ago, because they were all tremendous. But I brought a sense of discipline and focus that was very mission oriented, very different from what they had seen before. And so it was a wonderful opportunity for me to learn that whole side of the equation, and for them to get a perspective that they hadn't learned before either. Now, what was hard was many of them came from all kinds of different organizations to Al Udeid in a deployed environment. So they're all deployed. So their home station is back somewhere in the United States.
Right.
So they're here and they've got this crazy group commander who's doing some really strange things that they weren't used to. And so that drove a lot of, it took a lot more development for me to bring them on, especially because I had to start with the top, with the squadron commanders, get them on board, get their chiefs on board, get their operations officers on board, and then move out.
So what was it seems like such an ethereal thing to have to like take a squadron and then try to get them to focus on something and kind of develop them in a very specific way. So like from a topical level, how did you do that?
It's a great question. So for me, it was relatively simple to do, hard to implement, but simple in terms of thinking. My approach was establish clear standards of expectation and hold your people accountable. Simple as that. Much harder to execute than that, because your standards of expectation, if they don't align with what their standards of expectation are for themselves, you can force it on them. Don't recommend that. Or you can educate them. You can help them better understand the whys behind it. And once they understand the whys, they may not agree with what you're wanting to do, but if they understand that there's logic behind it, then almost every time they'll do it. So who did I have to convince? I had to convince the senior leadership first and help them understand this is where we're going, this is why we're going there, and this is what we're hoping to achieve.
Where did you get your initial standards of expectations?
I developed them myself. I looked at, so one of the things, I called the whole staff together, and one of the things that I asked them to do was, what are the mission critical activities that you do? Capture them succinctly and help me understand what they are. Then I went and looked at them. With each of the squadron commanders, I went and looked at what are your critical mission activities? And then why are they critical mission activities? And I would ask a lot of questions. And I understood a lot of their operations, but I didn't know the details behind it. So I'd ask a lot of questions, force them to kind of think through those kinds of things. But then once that happened, then I asked them, how do you know when you've achieved that? And so I'd make them come back to me, and this didn't happen overnight. This was a back and forth. especially the very first deployment. They were the guinea pigs because what I was doing, I was building my standards of expectation. So they came back to me and said, this is how I measure these types of things. So then we would tweak that. Some of them I didn't agree with, and some of them I did and understood what they were thinking about. But then what we did was we pieced all that together so that on a daily basis, I would get briefed on exactly where we were with each one of those mission critical activities. And then we used stoplight charts to help us understand red, green, yellow, very simple kinds of things. Then once we had all that kind of ironed out, then we had a pretty good plan, and my squadron commanders and my chiefs and my operations officers were all on the same sheet of music. Then we rolled it out. And so within each squadron.
Now you were there for a year.
Right.
Were their deployments 6 months or a year?
120 days.
120 days. So you had to roll this out and get everybody back on board multiple times.
Yes. Well, yes and no. I had to roll it out the first time, got everything lined up the first time, had the expectations.
Turnover.
And then in the turnover, that's where, as let me back up. Squadron commanders were there for a year.
Okay.
The squadron commanders and the first shirts were there for a year. Okay. Now the chiefs, my chief was there for a year. My deputy was there for a year with me, but many of the others were not. So I did have a cadre of squadron commanders that were consistently there with me the whole way through. That really helps. So they knew what the expectations were, and as the new 120-day crew came on board, and this is 1,500 staff that rotated every 120 days.
That's insane.
So it was just rinse and repeat at that point?
Yeah. At that point, but again, you've got new people, and if they don't understand the why behind it, then you got to help them.
So can you dig into that a little bit more? Like, if someone doesn't understand the why behind it, how do you solve that problem?
Yeah. So we did a number of things. So it was the squadron commander's responsibility to make sure that their squadrons understood what the standards of expectation were. My responsibility was to hold the squadron commanders accountable. So that chain of command kind of thing. But to start off with, I always had, as soon as they got on board, I would have a group call. And that group call, I will lay out my standards of expectation, help them understand the whys and the wherefores, what are the do's and don'ts, and what is my style of leadership. So I felt that was a critical thing to do to make sure that they understood how I was going to lead them. The squadron commanders then did the same kind of thing. But I wanted to set that tone that we're here for the next 120 days. We're focused on the mission, and that's what it's all about. And so it was very. I thought that was a useful approach to at least start the conversation that our squadron commanders and their staffs would then execute, and then I would follow up. And so that's critical. Accountability, follow up. If they're not holding expectations, then there's consequences for that. Good consequences, because I felt it's just as important to convey people that are supporting the expectations versus those that are not. It's so easy to punish those that aren't without taking time to reward those who are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so that was critical. Worked. I felt it seemed to work. And so we did that frequently.
Do you have any like special ways to handle a situation if the focus is met with pushback?
Yeah, so oftentimes when you have a pushback for whatever reason, that's an opportunity for you to learn, number one. Oftentimes people will push back for various reasons. The reasons why they say they're pushing back is often not the reason. And so you have got to do some spade work there to really understand what's going on behind the scenes. Why are you against this? Help me understand. If you put yourself in a position where you truly are they perceive that you're truly trying to understand what their concern is, They're much more willing to work with you. You may agree with their position. You may not agree. The fact that that you listen to them oftentimes is enough. And so that's critical. This whole idea of communication and just taking the time to understand what people are dealing with, what they're going through, why they're feeling the way they're feeling is important. And like I said, you've got to do some digging to make sure that what's really the issue is what you're addressing and not something else. And it's hard to figure that out sometimes. So communication is the key to everything oftentimes. Yeah. Forcing yourself never worked. Never worked.
Backfires 10 times out of 10.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and you should get pushback there, and that's one thing about the Air Force I love is they are willing to push back oftentimes. It's not like in some of the services where if you say blind following, oh, that's such a poor way of motivating people, and so helping them understand is so much better. And again, like I said before, if they don't agree with that, that's fine, but they understand it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once you understand if you can properly explain the why, you at least they at least have a picture of what's going on, and the probability of having buy-in goes up so much better. So now there's pride in the work, and the execution's just better. All the way
you're
around.
Exactly right, because buy-in is what you want.
Yeah.
Because once they buy into it, then it's theirs.
Right.
And they're going to make it work.
Right. And they'll hold their own people accountable. Right. It makes your job easier. It makes everybody's job easier.
Yeah. But all of this kind of stuff that we're talking about is directly applicable to even right here on this farm. And so each one of us brings a different story to bear. And so that's where our strengths come in, and we exercise those strengths collectively, and we have such a much better product in the end.
Yeah. What was it like working or what was your time like at Al-Udeid?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. It was a lot of fun. I missed the family terribly, but I had to set that aside. I just, so I worked, I never had a day off. I worked at least 12 hours every single day. I would go downtown, but I would work in the morning to be able to go downtown on, quite frankly, rare occasions.
Right.
But because I had the whole support side of the house, I was constantly on duty. So when I was off duty, I would have my radio with me, and I would go out, and I would go into the services area, and just wander the whole place.
Mingle with people.
Yeah, because the mingling was so critically important, because that's where you get the real truth.
Yeah.
How are things really going? What's going on with, you guys, you have any problems with the food that you're getting, or, of course, everybody were in these 50 room barracks kind of thing. And so they had these outside bathrooms that they had to go to that were separate from the barracks. And
still have those.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was often where the big problems were. And rightfully so. Hot water wasn't available for some, and you could only take 3-minute showers and those kinds of things, because you're in a desert environment, so you're very limited on what you can do. And so trying to engage with folks and taking off your rank, if you will, and I would have my T-shirt on and shorts. That's all. The only thing they knew was I had my radio, because I had to have the radio in case whatever. Because I was the on-scene commander if we had a natural disaster of any sort,
right.
or natural disaster, any disaster of any sort. So that was the only clue that I was different than anybody else. But yeah, if you could get them to talk with you, then just sit down and just chat.
So if you're engaging with them, what's stopping them from giving you all of their monkeys?
Oftentimes nothing.
Right.
Is it because you're in disguise, kind of? You're just in a T-shirt, or like, why are they not? Because I feel like if you were to do that, you would run the risk of swimming other people's problems, or them just unloading on you, and
you get a lot of that. And what I would advise them to do oftentimes was to check in with their first sergeant. If it was a personal type of issue, if it was an operational issue, I would ask them, have they brought it up to their supervisor? Oftentimes the answer is no. Why not? And so you just pick at that a little bit and just try to understand. You're using their chain of command to help solve their problems, but you're suggesting ways of doing that perhaps they didn't think about. But what I never would do, I won't say never, on rare occasion would I accept that monkey, and meaning I'm taking this and I'm going to run with this for you.
Yeah, you're just kind of like redirecting them into another direction.
I'm trying to help advise them on how they can use their chain of command to solve a perceived problem in their mind. Sometimes it's not a problem at all. They just didn't understand the why. And so I sit there and explain the why. Those are the most valuable, that was the most valuable time that I spent at Al-Udeid, was walking at night, just walking around talking with people, because it was so much value in that.
What was the like the environment and like the culture and all that? How was there any cultural shock there? I mean, I know you were trained preemptively before you went there.
Yeah. Cultural shock, yes. Many had never been deployed before. These are young, young people.
This
19, 20, 21-year-olds.
Fairly early in the war.
Yeah. So this is, well, this is 2004, 2005. The war was started, in 2000, whatever, 1, 2, 3. So it's been going on a couple years.
Right.
But for many, this was their first deployment. And so many were missing their families. They were missing their boyfriends or girlfriends. You had issues with people, women especially, getting pregnant on purpose to get sent back. Those kinds of issues you had to deal with. You had to deal with them. And surprisingly, I was not expecting that. But that happened a lot. It happened a lot. And so you had to figure out how you gonna deal with this. And so guiding your squadron commanders, because they didn't know how to deal with those kinds of things. So we're all kind of learning together. So that was one of the big cultural shifts for the young people, was that they'd never deployed before. Number 2 was they'd never been in a desert before.
Right.
And so the heat, and we were in Qatar, and so Qatar is on the water. So not only did you have heat, but you had humidity as well. And then you had the sandstorms that would come in, and none of us had experienced that. I'd never lived out west other than California, so I'd never experienced
which isn't the same.
Oh yeah, those sandstorms were unbelievable. So it was things like that. And then when the holidays came around, that was always hard on the young people. It was hard on all of us, quite frankly, but on the young people in particular. I mean, they were missing home and the whole thing, and so you would spend time. I'd get out there and I'd help them. I literally would get out there and help. If they're digging a pit, I'm digging a pit with them. If they're some of the aircraft maintenance guys, and I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't supposed to be around the aircraft maintenance guys, because I was different. I was a mission support, but I'd get out there and help them. And if they were cleaning the aircraft, so as your aircraft came in with your new troops, there was a whole bunch. Each squadron would get paid a good amount of money from the airlines to go clean the aircraft to turn it around. Oh, it was like $250, $300, something like that every time, and that would go into their squadron kitty to buy things. Oh yeah. So my squadrons all had people that were lined up. Well, I'd go help them. That was a hit. And boy, people would open up at that, doing that kind of thing, because you're working right alongside them.
Yeah.
You're not talking, you're working with them.
So, and that's a rare thing for a commander or an officer in any scope.
And it was,
of
by the
work.
way, in the middle of the night.
Right.
Yeah.
For any officer to come down and get in the dirt says so much about your leadership style.
No, it's
phenomenal. I think I had 2 commanders in my career.
Oh, wow.
That would make an effort to even come down to the shop and just poke his head and say, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah. I scheduled those.
Yeah.
I've scheduled those every I guess it was every week. I would do one squadron, and I would go down there for several hours. But you had to schedule it because we were just so friggin' busy all the time.
Right.
So, you know, stupid meeting after stupid meeting. So.
Sorry. So let's move on past Qatar. What was after that?
Yeah. So after Qatar, then I got selected to come to headquarters AFMC, Air Force Material Command, here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I remember the day, it was in March. I had, still deployed. I had been given a week of leave to come back home in March of 2005. And so I came back home for the week. And so I took Mom for a walk. And we were walking, we went down to Lake Braddock and back up. And on that walk, I told her that I got selected to come to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to head up the depot maintenance or depot operations division in what's called the A4 or logistics. She just started crying.
Wasn't happy with that, huh?
Not at all. Not at all. Why? Because Nicole and Casey
were right
there.
Yeah.
You're in high school, doing fine, right there. Megan is doing fine, right there. She wanted to stay right there, and so did not want to move.
Because you would have been freshman ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Was that the first time she got attached to a location?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it was because of, obviously, I mean, we had a grandchild at the time, and Nicole was on her own. She's living on her own, and yeah. So that was hard. That was really hard. The move was hard, and it was hard on you guys. You didn't want to go to Fairborn, and that's because we were living on base. When we moved here, we were living on base. You were going to go to Fairborn. Megan had just graduated. So it was a bit of a challenge for all of us, which put me on the alert that this is no longer easy moves.
Right.
Easy moves. So that's a very important point, because later on that becomes critically important.
Right.
But yeah, that's what happened. So we move here, and the trooper that she is, once she got past that, let's go. Let's make it work.
Yeah.
And so the family just buckled down, and off we came, leaving Nicole and Casey behind.
Yeah.
Really hard. So then we get here, and so I do that job for a while, and I get identified as a wing commander candidate at New Mexico, Kirkland Air Force Base, New Mexico. Well, and then my boss lays out, okay, General Officer track is looking very positive here. You spend 2 years out there as a wing commander, get promoted, go to the Pentagon for 2 years to get the Pentagon stink on you as a GO, and then come back to AFMC in the A4 or somewhere.
Right.
Or somewhere, or take over one of the ALCs. At the time, they were one-star billets, all that kind of good stuff. And so the very first thing that came to mind was, where are you going to be in school? You're going to be at Kirkland Air Force Base, so you're going to be at the schools in Kirkland, New Mexico.
Top notch.
Not good. So I turned it down. And when I turned it down, I automatically went into the category of resigned on active duty.
Right.
Meaning I am no longer a viable candidate for any kind of promotion, any kind of move, anything along those lines. My career has just ended. So that's how my career ended. Now, happy, we knew that. I knew that.
Yeah,
I knew if I turned this
yeah.
down, then I am ending my career. And we were good with that. And so that was in 2006, very early, January 2006. And so that then freed us up to start making decisions about planting roots permanently for our family. And so we turned around, we started looking, we found this place, bought this place, and in 2007 retired from the Air Force.
Why did you land on staying here instead of going back
Yeah,
to Virginia?
yeah. That's a great question. Yeah, because obviously
Right.
we would go back. First of all, we hated it there.
Other than
the family was there, not our lifestyle. Way too fast, way too much traffic, way too many people. Not what Trudy or I wanted long term.
Right. Have you ever been to that area?
No, I have no desire to go there.
Yeah, it really is.
I want to go see some of the memorials. The end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really
That's
is
my
just
list.
completely different. Like the work ethic there, I don't know what you call it, but the pace,
Culture.
the pacing and lifestyle was just radically different from
it's
anywhere.
radically different. First and foremost, what I needed was job opportunity. How am I going to make a living? Here was a great location because it's the logistics hub of the Air Force.
Right.
Right here. I'm a logistician. So that fits very nicely. So I can find a job most anywhere.
Right.
Here. That's exactly what happened. Found a plum job with Booz Allen Hamilton, spent 8 years with them, then got a job at the University of Dayton Research Institute, spent 9 years with them, and then finally retired last year from UDRI.
What? Go ahead.
2 years ago now, right?
It was October 2024. So a year and it's getting close to 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
a year and 10 months.
That didn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your job at Booz Allen Hamilton?
Yeah, so at Booz Allen Hamilton, I was a program manager, project manager, then program manager, and I was the senior logistician there. So I had an opportunity to lead a team of logistics experts. So I did that for, again, 8 years, worked at the Booz Allen Hamilton office, and for the first 4 years, and the last 4 years, I worked at the Air Force Base as a contractor, as a Booz Allen Hamilton contractor. Then decided to jump ship there and go to UDRI for a great opportunity, and became the portfolio manager there for all of the different kinds of sustainment project management activities that our division was working on. So I had a wonderful leadership team there, had wonderful support, had a great staff, and so it was my ideal job.
How did you get that opportunity? Did it come to you, or did you
come to
seek
me?
it out?
Came to me. Yeah, I was sitting doing some work one day at my desk on base, and a GS-15 senior leader came to me and said, "Hey, we've got this opportunity over here. Are you interested?" I said, "Heck yeah, let's go talk." So I went to his office and we talked. He closed the door and we just talked about it. I said, "Absolutely, I'm interested." Now, it took a $15,000 pay cut to do that. Yeah, big pay cut. But in the end, I was making far more there than I would have at Booz Allen, because I was at the peak of my pay scale at Booz Allen. Okay. So and it worked out so much. And the big difference was I didn't have to do business development. I did business development for them, but I didn't have to. And so that was the whole BD side of the business development side of the house. I don't enjoy that.
Right. How much did your work home life, how did that balance out?
Yeah, so when I retired from the military, it got much better.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
It got much better. But I started getting a lot of pressure at Booz Allen for business development. There was a lot of business development pressure there, which caused me to, I'm introverted, number one, so I don't react well with people and all that kind of good stuff. I can do it, but I just don't like it. I'm not energized by that. And then the pressure was there.
Right.
When I went to UDRI, all of that changed. And so I had a wonderful division head, and every one of my division heads, the last one I had, tremendous. Those guys were just awesome. I loved them. And then my staff was just had a beautiful staff. And so it was a pleasure to go to work.
Right.
And so I enjoyed that tremendously.
And then you planted your first trees when you were working for Booz Allen.
Yeah, so in 2007, when the year I retired was the year we planted our first trees. right out here.
I mean, at one point you decided to plant roots here, and you've never owned a home to begin with. So how did you go about, transitioning from working at Right Pat into buying this farm?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we spent a good couple of years as we were getting near retirement age within the military. We knew that we needed to start doing some long-term planning for that. I don't know if you remember, if you went with us on any of these trips, if we'd go visit Christmas tree farms.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Okay. We would do that on occasion. So we knew that we wanted to do some kind of farming because my passion was trees. Trudy's passion was animals. So we thought if we got a farm of some sort, because the farm life appealed to us. Both of us are city born and bred. So we had no experience of what farm life was like. We just knew that the idea was very enticing. It appealed to us. And because both of us had passions and we wanted to, in our retirement years, we wanted to capitalize on those passions, we thought that owning a Christmas tree farm would be a way to do a number of things. Number one, I'm working with trees and just the things I love to do. We can have as many animals as we want on the farm, which is what Trudy loves to do. So we saw that that would work for us, number one. Number two was we loved the local area. When you get outside of the city of Dayton, if you will, and you just drive around, you can see that people care. They care about what they have. May not have a lot, but what they have, they care for. So the rural community really was appealing to us. So that was number two. Number three, the job market was very good. So if I needed a job, I could get a job. And so that was most important. That was our number one thing. But then we started to lay out, what do we want in a house? Because like you said, we had moved 22 times, never owned a home in our life. So when we moved to this farm, first time we ever owned a home. And the first time, now we've been here for almost 20 years, no, 20 years. In June of this year, we've been here for 20 years. So we knew we were going to buy a home. So what did an ideal farm look like? And so we laid out all these things. And the number one thing was it had to be a single story. We knew as we were getting older that we did not want to deal with stairs. So that was critical to us. We needed to be off the roadway, so that we could have quiet time. That was another really high important thing for us. And it had to be in a rural setting. So we didn't want to buy land right next to a town.
A housing development.
Of course, housing development and all that kind of good stuff. But we wanted to be close enough that we could
dash to the store or whatever.
No, we can attract customers and they didn't have to come far to get to us. Because we knew we were going to do a Christmas tree operation by then. So those are kind of the reasons why we settled on this place. And then this happened to come up. And we just worked a deal with everybody, and it kind of went the way it did. Yeah.
So you knew that at what point did you know that you were going to do Christmas trees?
Yeah, probably while we were still in the DC area. Yeah, before I was sent over to Qatar, that 1 year prior, we had pretty much settled on, we knew that we wanted to do a Christmas tree operation. Didn't know anything about it. Went and looked at some farms, never talked to anybody. But in 2005, when we moved here, we had in 89, 90, when you were super young. No, you weren't even here when we were here in 89 and 90, because you were born down there. We had gone to Young's Jersey Dairy. Spent a lot of time. The kids loved that. It was really just a fun thing. So when we moved back, we took everybody out there again. Well, I went by the Christmas tree farm that was there, and I seen Carl Young out there. So I scooted in, introduced myself, say, hey, I'm whatever, and we're thinking about a Christmas tree operations. Oh, come on, let's go talk. So he talks to me and Trudy, and we go out there, and he chats for like an hour and a half with us. And just that kind of thing helped us say, yeah, this is pretty much what we want to do. And so we started looking for property at that point. And when we found this place, I took it to Carl and had him, he was at the time, he was 78 years old. So, he had some experience. And so, we looked over the whole thing, and he thought it was a good deal. I thought it was a good deal. And so we decided to buy it.
once you did buy this farm, you started the conversion into a Christmas tree pretty
right away.
Like right away, yeah.
Yeah, so we bought it in the spring of 2006. Started doing our research. You know, I'm a planner by trade, so I started planning out what the farm would look like, and so I had all that visualized in my head and on paper. So then I got a business plan together, developed a business plan. I didn't complete it all the way through.
Right.
You know, it was probably 80% complete, but it was enough to get in my head, get from my head down on paper the kinds of things that we need to do. Developing the layout of the farm was the most critical because I wanted to make sure there's a number of things that I was looking for. But one of them was security. I wanted to be able to do a quick pass and not have to go around the whole farm to see if anybody was here. And I can show you guys when you look at the map, but the way it's designed, you can do a very short run and you can look at almost the entire farm. So things like that, we started laying out. And so developing our financial plan, and our financial plan turned out to be very simple. We are not going in debt for anything. So we didn't go in debt for anything. And so at the time, this is now in 2008, you had this epiphany that, was it Bill Gates? He didn't go to college, so you didn't need to go to college.
Oh yeah, so a lot of successful people didn't go to college.
Yeah, so
Bill
you
Gates
didn't go to
was one
college.
of them, yeah.
So we had this funding set aside for your college. So that became source funding for my equipment. Thank you very much.
Your college really paid off.
Yeah. So his college education is what we started using to help get the kinds of equipment that we needed. It was small things, but everything was used and everything was paid for and all that kind of good stuff. Then he decides to go to college. So then we did the loan thing for college. We never did it for the farm, but we did do it for college. So it was good. It worked out. You know, the way God worked it, it was intended to be that way.
So the Ford's technically yours.
That's a good point.
Okay, it sounds like
a toe over the line, Kevin.
It sounds like the math you did yesterday. There's something wrong with it. I just don't quite know what it is.
Yeah, you'll tell me in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, when I think about it. Yeah.
What were some of the things that you had to buy, like equipment that you had to buy to get the farm started?
So if you remember, because you came with me to get it, we got a 1950 Ford 8N. And so we got that. It's a tractor, 1950 tractor. It came with a finishing deck, and it came with a blade, and it came with a bush hog, and all for $3,000 bucks. Now at the time, what I didn't realize was that the tractor was too big for the spacing that I was going to put because I hadn't decided on the spacing yet. So it turns out
between the tree rows.
Between the tree rows, yeah, the width was just a bit too big. To plant the first several fields, it was perfect for that. But as the trees started growing, I couldn't use that anymore. So in 2010, I ended up buying a smaller wheelbase Kubota L2500 tractor. But so those three things is what I needed to purchase. Things like chainsaws, needed to have that, weed eaters, just common hand tools like those sickles that we were describing, all of those.
Mowers.
Our mower, we had, no. So we had the mower we had to buy for the yard, but we used the finishing deck and we used the brush hog. The brush hog, that's how we mowed our fields.
So when you first got this was corn, soybean all the way around.
Corn, soybean all the way around. And so we planted this first field front right as you're going down the drive. That was our first field. But for the first several years, that's how I mowed.
Yeah.
Was with that. But again,
Until
remember,
you couldn't.
Until we couldn't, and the ground, we were taking ground that was former corn and soybean, so it's dirt, and so it was just one big mess. And when it rained in the springtime after you planted, and it's all mud, then runoff. Rain runoff was a big problem for us, and we would have torrential rains come through, and we would have to literally dig channels for the water to get the water out. And so that's why I can show you as we go out, and you have these bumps that you go over. That's what those are. Those were channels that we had to dig in order to get the water out. So thankfully, we're way beyond that. But those are the kinds of tools that we initially had to get. The herbicides and the pesticides and the fertilizers were thousands of dollars. And so that was an expense that I had to plan for. So those are the kinds of things that we were looking at.
And 7 to 8 years worth of them, because your return on profit, not even return on profit, but your first sale.
Yeah. So that's one thing most people don't realize is, you have 8 years of investing in your Christmas tree operation with zero return.
Right.
Not a dollar comes back to you for 8 years. So now you've accumulated 8 years worth of debt. And so now you're waiting, and so you start getting a very small income for the first year. 219 trees we sold that first year. And that was open for 30 days. We were open every day of the week except for Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
Every day of the week for a month, right up until the 22nd of December. And we did that for the first 3 years. And then things changed at that point. But yeah, that's you're putting a lot of money into something and not seeing any return.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that people don't often think about is in a Christmas tree operation, you don't know what the market is going to be 8 years later when that tree is mature. And what changed for us was Scotch pine was the predominant tree when I first got started, and it changed to Canaan fir.
Real quick.
And so, thinking it's not like Walmart where I'm thinking, 2 or 3 months in advance, what is the market going to be looking for? Like right now, they're planning on, I guess, Valentine's Day, because Christmas stuff is already out.
Right.
So whatever they're planning for, it's only months away, whereas for Christmas trees, it's literally years away.
This must have driven your logistics brain a little crazy.
Well, fortunately, I had that discipline, and so was able to control that a little bit. What bothered me was weather. That was my biggest challenge. Yeah, my biggest challenge was weather. I worried the first couple of years, I worried like crazy about weather. And finally, I learned that you just can't worry about it. You react to it, but I can't control it.
Right.
So if you can't control it, don't worry. Of course, and that's right out of Scripture as well. But I have learned since I don't get nearly as upset about weather. I don't monitor it. I do monitor it on a daily basis, but I don't dwell on it and stress on it and those kinds of things. That was probably my biggest hurdle to overcome.
How are we on time?
I don't know. We've been going for a while.
Okay.
You got places to be?
No, we're getting ready. It's 7:30-ish, so we're getting to the point where chickens are going to start creeping up on, ready to go in.
You were also working in retirement, like you were working at Booz Allen Hamilton and or the UDRI at the same time while you're running the farm too. Right. So that was another aspect of it where you were basically working 2 jobs to get the farm started. Yeah, so I'd come home at night. So I'd get home at 6. Trudy would have dinner ready. By 6:30, I would be out in the field and I'd work until dark.
2.5 hours.
But did that every single day, even in the wintertime, because we just couldn't get caught up.
Right.
So that was hard. Enjoyed it, loved it, didn't mind it at all, but it was hard, especially once I retired and realized, wow.
I was doing a lot.
That's crazy. Why are you doing that? So,
I wanted to ask real quick before we wrap it up, what when you worked at the Pentagon, I mean, what was it like working at the Pentagon? You said you worked in the basement.
Yep. So it was very different. So I can answer this in just such a number of different ways. It was exciting. I mean, you could go up to the 5th floor. You can walk the halls, and go into the E ring, which is where the leadership team was, and walk the halls and see the history. And so that part of it, the Pentagon is full of history.
Yeah.
That part of it was really exciting. There was lots of pomp and circumstance there as well. There was lots of ceremony there that you could attend, that you can witness.
Right.
That was pretty cool. I had a chance to interact with senior, lieutenant colonels, general officers across all the services. Very exciting. How different they are culturally, how different we are raised, how we deal with situations. Very different in some cases, a lot of commonality in other cases. But learning to operate in a joint environment, that was really exciting. That was good. The pace of work, excruciating. It was balls to the wall. It was hard, fast-paced, and get it right the first time. And some people couldn't. And you didn't survive. And they didn't, especially on the joint staff. They didn't. If you didn't make it, if you didn't cut it, you were out of there. And by design, so you either sink or swim.
Yeah.
So that was like a wake-up call. That was like, oh, do I fit here? Am I right here? Am I the right fit for this? That kind of thing I was always questioning. And seeing people struggle was hard, especially in different services who just they weren't raised as officers in ways that really was helpful for them, and so that hurt. The Air Force was probably the worst in that, by the way. So we didn't really do a good job, I don't think, in raising our officers to be good at joint. So that all that was interesting. What I found disappointing were, quite frankly, the civil servants, who some were great, lots of contractors there, but you can tell the ones who have been there a long time. They're the ones, they walk from point to point all the way to the far right, heads down, don't look at anybody. And it's that kind of mentality. I was like, wow, that's sad that you have those kinds of people in that wonderful environment. So I don't know if I answered your question well, but that's what it was like. And you never knew who you were going to bump into. You can have some very seriously high-ranking people just walking the halls. You can have news reporters walking the halls at the time. You had all kinds of people you didn't know who you're going to run into. And so, you constantly had to be aware, of who's out there. Security was super tight, especially after 9/11. It was crazy tight.
So were you there during 9/11?
Yeah. So when 9/11 occurred, it was about 9:30ish. At 9 o'clock, I was there. And for some reason that day, I needed to go over to my other office. So I had gotten on a bus, a minivan, a small van that goes directly to the Institute for Defense Analyses. I got there, went into the briefing room because we had an operations brief that I needed to attend, and that's when it hit. That's when the aircraft flew into the. So it's just a matter of 20 minutes or so.
Right.
So thank God.
Were you on that side of the building too?
No, I was on the opposite side of the building.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on the opposite side. Yeah, so they plowed into the Army side in particular. And, yeah, sad. Yep.
All right, well, that's a good place to wrap it up. We can talk real quick about what happened on the farm this past week. We had a couple chores that we had to get through. What was something you guys did?
Big one is putting cages around the chestnut trees to prevent cattle from rubbing on the chestnut tree tubes, which we started back in May.
It might have been, yeah.
May, and it took us like 3 days to get 26 of them fully up, and we went through and refined our process, and we got another 133 done in 3 days.
Yep. So we have the tube.
Yep.
And then so what we did was we put 2 T-post stakes in, and then we took 330 feet rolls of field fence, and we cut them into a 2-foot diameter cage. And we had to then weave that cage together so that it'd stay together, then take it out there, put it over the tube, put the T-posts in,
Yep, drive all
and
those.
then put the clips on to hold it all together.
Yeah.
For each tree.
For each tree.
Yeah.
Those trees are well protected now.
Well, at least a quarter of our orchard is done.
Yeah, they're well protected. But the idea is to that's our cattle protection.
Yeah.
I was thinking, are we going to have that field completed with chestnuts by the time we introduce cattle in 2028?
Yeah. So next year, we should complete that.
Okay, that's good.
Well,
Okay.
cages.
Wise, yeah, we'll have to.
We'll have to knock
probably
those out.
no
early
cage wise, yeah, early 2028.
Early.
But that's the plan. Is we're going to have next year we'll get another third in, and then in 2028 we'll get the other third in.
First thing in the spring, early in the spring.
Yeah, that'll be. But we'll have that down to a real science by then.
Right.
We learned so much the second time. Those first 26, it was just so painful.
Yeah.
But the next 133, it flew.
Found all the ways to do it wrong in the first 26. I think.
Yeah.
What else? You were doing some mowing, catching up on mowing?
Yeah, so we caught up on mowing. Trudy's been doing the primary mowing. For that, we had a lot of rain last week and the week before, and so we weren't able to mow. So the grass is growing so fast that I had to raise the deck up, and she's just mowing straight down the rows just to mow the grass to get it under control. So we got a little out of control with her mowing. So she's getting caught up on that. She's not there yet. In the meantime, I'm out there mowing the hayfield, so our pasture, because that too was growing like crazy. So I ended up mowing that, and then I had to plane or use our box blade to grade the gravel drive. And so I did that today, and then tomorrow I'm going to start the cleanup effort that is going. So that's why I'm not helping her mow, because we've got so many other things that are backed up that we're trying to get done as well. So that's what that is.
Yeah. And then we had coffee hup at some professional development days at the local high school this year. Or this week.
Yeah, this
Not
week.
this
Yeah, we
year.
did that Monday through Wednesday of this
Jeez.
week, and so yeah, that was good. So that kind of sums up the week for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like a productive week.
Yeah.
All right, let's
That was a big
wrap it
check
up
mark.
there. And we have chickens to attend to. So if you guys have made it this far, go ahead and like this video and then subscribe if you're not already. That really helps out this channel. And until next time, we'll see you guys in the next one.
All right.
Yeah.